The empty stomach and the silent cry Jalen lived alone at the edge of the forest. His cabin was small but warm. He had built it himself after leaving the busy human colonies. He liked the quiet, the sound of trees moving in the wind, and the stars, at night. He had no family, just the woods, his tools, and peace. One evening, just before sunset, he was chopping wood when he noticed something strange. Tiny footprints in the snow. They were not human. They were small, uneven, and shaky. They led from the trees to the edge of his garden. Some vegetables were missing. He frowned. An animal, he whispered. But no animal walked like that. The steps were too careful, too scared. The next morning, more vegetables were gone. This time he saw something else. A trail of small handprints and what looked like claw marks. Something or someone was crawling away. That night, Jalen left food outside his cabin. A few slices of bread, a boiled root, a piece of dried meat. He too stayed awake, hiding near the window. The forest was quiet. Then he heard it. A soft cry, like a baby, but not human. His heart skipped. The crying got louder, just a little. Enough to pull him outside. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped onto the frozen ground. Snow crunched under his boots. He followed the sound behind a row of trees. There, half hidden in the bushes, was a tiny alien child. Its skin was pale blue, thin like paper. Its eyes were huge and wet. It shook from cold and hunger. The child stopped crying when it saw him. It looked ready to run, but had no strength. Jalen crouched down slowly. "Hey, I won't hurt you." He took a soft fruit from his coat and rolled it gently on the ground, toward the child. The child looked at it with fear, then hunger. Slowly, it picked it up and bit. Juice ran down its chin. It ate like it hadn't eaten in days. That's when a shadow moved behind the bush. Jalen froze. A figure stepped forward, taller, weaker, and limping. It was a woman, alien. Her clothes were torn, her skin dry and cracked. She looked like she hadn't eaten in weeks. She was carrying nothing but her own shaking hands. Her eyes locked on Jalen, full of fear, pain, and shame. Then her legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow. Jalen ran to her side. "Hey, don't move. Stay with me." Her lips moved. She whispered something. He leaned in. "Please, my baby." Then she passed out. Jalen didn't wait. He picked up the baby gently in one arm, the woman in the other. She was light, too light. Bones and cold skin. He carried them both to his cabin. Inside, he laid them near the fire. He wrapped them in blankets. The baby curled up quickly, warming up. The mother stayed unconscious. Jalen crushed some herbs into hot water and placed a cloth on her forehead. He boiled soup. Simple, light. When the mother woke up a few hours later, her eyes went straight to the baby. The child was asleep beside her, safe and warm. She looked at Jalen, confused. He placed the soup near her. "Eat. You need it." She didn't move at first. Then slowly, like every muscle hurt, she reached for the bowl. She took a sip, then another. And then without warning, she began to cry. Silent tears. She held the bowl close like it was the most precious thing in the world. She pulled her baby closer and fed it some broth with her fingers. The child drank quietly, then smiled a little. Jalen watched, his heart heavy. He asked softly, "What happened to you?" The alien woman looked up. Her voice was rough. I lost my mate. I ran. No food, nowhere safe. They hunt us." "Who?" Jalen asked. She shook her head. "Bad people. Slavers. I escaped, but they still want me. I hid here, my baby. Didn't eat for 3 days." Her lips trembled. "I thought we'd die." Jalen stood, nodding slowly. "Not today. Not while I'm here." The woman stared at him like she didn't believe what she just heard, but in that moment, for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. The hidden camp in the woods, the fire crackled quietly inside Jalen's cabin. The alien woman, weak and pale, was wrapped in thick blankets, her baby asleep in her arms. For hours she didn't speak. Only her eyes moved, watching the walls, the door, and the man who had saved her. She didn't trust him yet. But she also didn't fear him. That was new. Jalen didn't ask more questions. He simply placed more food by her side, fresh water, and tucked more wood into the fire. Outside, the wind howled. The forest grew darker as a heavy fog rolled in. Snow had started falling again. They were trapped indoors, but for once it felt safe. The next morning, the alien woman finally spoke. "My name is Thea," she said softly, "and my child's name is Luma." Jalen nodded. "I'm Jalen." She looked down. "Thank you for not letting us die." Jalen smiled a little. "I don't like letting people die, even when they're not human." Thea blinked, surprised by the kindness in his voice. But the peace didn't last long. That afternoon, Jalen found claw marks near the trees behind his cabin. He bent down. Something had been watching them. He didn't tell Thea right away. She was finally eating, her baby finally resting. He didn't want fear to return so soon. Instead, he grabbed his tools and began fixing up an old structure near his cabin. It had once been a shed, but now he had other plans. He worked for hours in the snow, hammering, sawing, patching up holes. By nightfall, he turned it into something new, a small hidden camp disguised by thick branches and snow. When Thea saw it, she was shocked. "For you and Luma," Jalen explained. "It's hidden, warm, safer than staying in the open." Her lips trembled again, but this time it wasn't hunger or sadness, it was disbelief. No one had done something like this for her since her mate. They moved that night. Jalen helped carry their few things. He wrapped Luma in a blanket and gently placed the child inside a warm basket lined with wool. He added heating stones to keep the air cozy. Inside the camp, Thea lit a small lamp. "You shouldn't help us," she said suddenly. Jalen looked at her. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because if they find us, they'll kill you too." He didn't flinch. "Let them try." She shook her head. "You don't understand, they're slavers. They don't care who they hurt. If they find out you helped me, they'll burn your home. They'll chain you next." Jalen sighed. "I've survived. Worse." There was silence for a moment. Then she asked, "Why? Why are you doing this?" He thought for a second, then said, "Because no one helped me when I needed it." Thea looked at him, really looked at him. This human, so quiet, so calm, carried his own pain. She could see it in his eyes now. He didn't save her just out of kindness. He saved her because he knew what it felt like to be alone. Suddenly, Luma stirred and started crying. A soft, weak sound, but loud enough to send a chill down Thea's spine. She jumped to her feet and quickly covered the lamp. "Shh, no, no, please, little one," she whispered, holding the baby close. "You must not cry too loud." Jalen stepped closer. "Thea," she put a finger to her lips. "They might be listening." Then she turned and pulled a piece of metal from her torn belt. She placed it against the camp's wall. It made a small, static hum. "What is that?" Jalen asked. Thea whispered. "A sound scrambler. It hides our voices. But it's old. Weak. Doesn't last long." Jalen's jaw tightened. "Then we'll build something better." "You're not scared?" she asked. "I am," he said. "But I'm more angry. Angry they made you run. Angry your baby nearly died. Angry this galaxy lets monsters win." Thea didn't say anything for a long moment. Then softly she said, "I was pregnant when they took my husband. He tried to fight back. They shot him in the streets. Called it discipline. I ran before they sold me too. Tears welled in her eyes. I've been hiding ever since, eating roots, drinking melted snow. My baby cried so much one night. I nearly covered her mouth, just to make the sound stop. Jalen gently placed a hand on her shoulder. You never have to do that again. For the first time, Thea smiled. It was small, broken, but real. Outside, snow continued to fall, but inside that small, hidden camp in the woods, something rare had begun to grow. Trust. The man who shared his food snow still fell outside the small hidden shelter Jalen had built. Inside it was warmer now, safe, but the air was still heavy with fear and silence. Thea sat on the wooden floor, rocking little Luma gently in her arms. The baby was no longer crying, but her belly still growled. The small meal from last night wasn't enough. Jalen noticed. He stood, walked to the storage cabinet near the door, and pulled out a large bag of food supplies. He brought out bread, dried fruits, and boiled roots. Then, without saying a word, he placed them on a blanket and spread them in front of Thea. She stared at the food, like it was treasure. For you, he said softly. She didn't move. But, this is your food. Jalen shook his head. I have enough, and if I run out, I'll hunt more. Her lips trembled again. She reached out slowly, like she didn't believe it was real. She picked up a piece of bread and held it near her baby's mouth. Little Luma grabbed it with both hands, chewing clumsily, juice and crumbs sticking to her tiny face. Then, Thea began to cry. Not the silent, scared tears she had shed before. This time she sobbed openly. Her whole body shook. She buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered between sobs. I didn't want her to suffer. I tried to feed her, roots, snow, anything. But she cried so much. She cried because I had nothing left to give her. Jalen sat beside her. He didn't say anything. He simply placed a warm mug of tea in her hand. I didn't expect to find you, she said. I thought humans wouldn't care. Some don't, Jalen replied. But some do, and those are the ones that matter. She looked at him. Why are you like this? He stared into the fire for a moment, then said, My mother died when I was young. My father worked in the mines. He was hard, cold. I ran away at 15, learned to survive alone. He paused. One day I was starving. I knocked on a door begging for food. A stranger gave me bread. That moment, it changed me. Thea listened carefully, her eyes never leaving his. I swore, Jalen continued. If I ever saw someone starving like I was, I'd feed them, too. Thea whispered. You kept your promise. Jalen gave her a small smile. Yeah, I did. For the first time since she had arrived, Thea ate without fear. Bite after bite, she chewed slowly, feeding her daughter between mouthfuls. Luma giggled softly after finishing the dried fruit. It was the first sound of happiness Jalen had heard from the baby. It made him smile wider. Later that evening, as the wind howled outside, Thea spoke again. You should leave us behind, she said. Soon, before they find you too. I'm not leaving, Jalen said firmly. You could die. So could you. So could she. Thea went quiet. I'm not just feeding you food, he continued. I'm feeding you hope. And that matters. More. That night, Jalen placed extra wood on the fire. Thea and Luma rested together in a soft pile of blankets. Before sleep took her, Thea whispered one last thing. You're not just a man. You're a protector. And for the first time in her life, she didn't fall asleep afraid. Outside, deep in the trees, a red light blinked once, then disappeared. Something or someone had found a trail. The warning in the dark, Jalen stood at the edge of the woods with a hunting rifle in his hand. The wind had picked up, but it wasn't just the cold that made him uneasy. It was the strange sound he'd heard before. Dawn, a faint click, metal on metal. He had heard that sound during the war, back when machines hunted people. Now it was back. He looked down and saw it, a footprint, sharp, heavy, and fresh. Not from any animal, not from him, and not from Thea. Something was out there. Inside the shelter, Thea was combing her fingers gently through her daughter's fine hair. Luma had finally fallen into a peaceful sleep. The warmth of the fire crackled beside them, but Thea's ears twitched. A sound. The wind had changed. Her body froze. Then she grabbed Luma and held her close. When Jalen stepped back in, she was already waiting by the door. "You heard it too," she said without looking at him. He nodded. "Footprints, machine scent, it's close." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They found us." Jalen didn't panic. "Then we leave before it gets closer." But Thea didn't move. Her voice was low. "It's not just a hunter." Jalen turned to her. "What do you mean?" She looked straight at him now. "It's a tracker drone. If it's here, the hunter isn't far behind. He's the one they call Karn. He's not like others. He hunts for sport, for cruelty. He doesn't leave survivors." Jalen clenched his jaw. "Let him come." Thea stepped forward. "No, you don't understand. He destroyed entire villages. He took my sister. He burned her alive because she screamed too loud. He doesn't stop." Jalen didn't flinch. "Then I won't either." That night, Jalen locked every door, every window. He placed sound scramblers near the walls, added extra insulation to keep heat from escaping. Anything to stay hidden. But at midnight, a sound cut through the silence. Thump. Then again. Thump. Slow, heavy footsteps. Metal. Jalen grabbed his rifle and looked out through the slit in the wooden wall. In the distance, glowing red eyes scanned the trees. It was the drone. It stopped near the garden where the first theft had happened. And then, it turned toward the cabin. Jalen didn't breathe. Thea held her child tight and crouched in the shadows. The drone beeped once, then twice. Then, it stopped. Silence. 5 long seconds. Then it turned away and vanished into the trees in the silence that followed. Jalen let out a slow breath. "They're scanning for life signs," Thea whispered. "We're safe. For now," he said. "No. That drone will return. It never searches twice unless it senses warmth. It found heat. It will tell Karn." Jalen stood. "Then we leave tonight." He pointed toward the hill. "There's an old tunnel near the mining ridge. It leads to an abandoned outpost. It's dark. Safe. If we're lucky, we'll be long gone before morning." Thea didn't hesitate. "Let's go." Jalen wrapped Luma in thick cloth, then strapped a heating pouch beside her. Thea held her close. The baby didn't make a sound. Together, the 3 of them stepped out into the frozen night. The stars were bright above, but the trees below were shadows with eyes. Every step through the snow felt louder than thunder. Jalen's eyes scanned the trees. Thea's ears twitched at every sound. They didn't speak. Silence was their only shield. Then suddenly, a sound behind them. Metal, claws, breathing. Jalen turned, rifle up. A shadow moved fast between trees. "Karn," Thea whispered. "He's here." The hunter's arrival, they ran. Snow crunched under Jalen's boots as he led Thea and her baby through the dark woods. His breath steamed in the cold air. Behind him, Thea held Luma close to her chest, her eyes wide and alert. No one spoke. They didn't have to. The hunter was near. Karn moved like a shadow of death. His armor was black and sharp, covered in old blood and scars. His red eyes glowed in the dark like 2 angry stars. On his back, a long blade hummed quietly, ready to strike. He wasn't just chasing them. He was enjoying it. He sniffed the air, then smiled beneath his helmet. "Almost there," he whispered to himself. He didn't run. He didn't need to. He always caught his prey. Jalen led Thea to the rocky side of a hill. Behind a broken log, he pushed aside some leaves and exposed a hidden tunnel. It was narrow, but just wide enough to crawl through. "This way," he said quickly. Thea crawled inside first, holding Luma close. Jalen followed, sealing the entrance behind them with branches and snow. Inside the tunnel, it was damp and dark. Jalen lit a small blue lamp. The walls were old and crumbling. "This used to be a mine shaft," he whispered. "Long ago. We follow it east. We reach the outpost." Thea nodded, though fear shook her hands. Behind them, they heard it. Boom, boom, boom. Heavy metal steps above. The hunter had reached the clearing. Karn tilted his head. "Found you." In the tunnel, Jalen and Thea hurried deeper, their path lit only by the blue glow. The air grew colder. Then suddenly, crash! Blast ripped open part of the tunnel behind them. Rocks fell. Dust filled the air. Karn had used an explosive charge. Jalen turned and fired blindly into the smoke. The bullet hit metal. A growl echoed back. "He's in!" Jalen yelled. "Run!" Thea clutched her baby and ran ahead. Jalen pulled a second. Grenade from his belt, threw it behind them and ducked. Boom. The tunnel shook. More rubble fell. A section of the tunnel collapsed, blocking the hunter for now. But not forever. After minutes of crawling and climbing, they finally reached a wide chamber. Old mining tools lay broken around the room. An old heating panel still blinked red. "We'll rest here," Jalen said. "Just for a moment." Thea sat down, exhausted. Luma was crying softly now. The child was hungry again. Her small hands pulled weakly at Thea's sleeve. Jalen handed over the last protein bar from his pack. Thea fed her baby with shaking fingers. "She's so small now. I don't know how much more she can take." Jalen knelt beside them. "We're almost there. Just one more mile through the side shaft." Then the light behind them flickered, and a voice, cold and sharp, echoed through the tunnel. "You run well." "For prey," Thea gasped. Jalen stood up slowly, rifle raised. Karn stepped from the shadows unharmed, his red eyes glowing like fire. "I always find what's mine," he growled. He stared at Thea. "You, stolen property," then at Jalen. "You, a fool," Jalen aimed. "Get away from them," Karn smirked. "You think bullets scare me?" He took one step forward. Bang! Jalen fired. The bullet hit Karn's chest plate. Sparks flew. Karn stumbled, but didn't fall. He laughed. "You'll have to do better." The escape plan, the shot had no effect. The bullet hit Karn's armor and bounced off like it was nothing. Jalen cursed under his breath. Thea screamed, shielding Luma with her body. Karn took another step into the chamber, his heavy boots cracking stone beneath him. "I gave you a chance," he said calmly, raising his blade. "You wasted it." Jalen stepped back, trying to reload, but Karn moved fast, too fast for someone so large. He swung his blade. Jalen ducked just in time, the steel missing his head by inches. The weapon slammed into a wall and sent dust flying. Sparks lit the chamber. Thea crawled back, clutching her baby. "Jalen," she cried. "I've got a plan," he shouted. "Just trust me." 2 days earlier, Jalen had hidden something deep in the tunnels, a mining cart rigged with explosives. It was supposed to be a last resort. Now it was time to use. Jalen reached into his coat and clicked a remote on his belt. Nothing happened. He clicked again. Still nothing. Karn laughed. "You think toys will save you?" But then, rumble. From the shaft behind Karn, a deep shaking began. Karn paused. Then suddenly a roar echoed, and an old mining cart came flying down the tunnel. It was fast, it was loud, and it was loaded. Karn turned. Too late. Boom. The cart hit his side and exploded in a burst of fire and rock. The blast threw him across the chamber. Smoke filled the air. Jalen ran to Thea and grabbed her arm. "Now, let's go." They bolted through a narrow tunnel Jalen had dug weeks ago as a secret escape path. It wasn't on any map. Not even drones would know it existed. Behind them, rubble crashed and fire raged. They crawled and climbed through the narrow space, heartbeats pounding. The path was rough and jagged, but Jalen knew it by memory. "We're almost out," he shouted. Luma cried from the cold, but Thea held her tight and whispered soft words in her alien tongue. Then finally, light. They burst out into the frozen night. Stars sparkled above them, and in the distance, a fence marked the edge of the old human outpost. Jalen had sent an emergency signal there before they left the cabin. He didn't know if anyone received it, but he hoped. He turned back once and saw flames rising from the broken tunnel. "Is he dead?" Thea asked, her voice weak. Jalen shook his head. "Not yet, but he's hurt." They reached the outpost gates. Jalen banged the door. Nothing. Then, a voice crackled through the speaker. "Identify, Jalen Cross, former Terran engineer, emergency code 214 green. I'm with 2 survivors." The gate didn't move. Jalen cursed. "They're going to leave us out here." But then, the gate opened. Soft lights flooded out and 2 humans in military suits stepped forward. One lowered his gun and said, "You're lucky, stranger. You just missed curfew." Inside the HFY outpost, the warmth hit them like a wave. Medics rushed to Thea and Luma, wrapping them in blankets and checking their vitals. A young officer approached Jalen. "You've got an injured alien female and an infant. Why bring them here?" "Because they were hunted," Jalen said. "Because they were starving." The officer frowned. "And the hunter?" Jalen looked toward the hills. "He's not done yet, but neither are we." In the distance, under the rubble and smoke, a metal hand twitched. Karn's red eyes blinked back to life, and this time, he was angry. The new dawn-warm sunlight touched the frosted roof of the old human outpost. The long night was finally over. Inside the medical bay, Thea sat on a soft cot, holding little Luma close. For the first time in many days, the baby slept with a full belly and a peaceful face. Machines around them beeped gently, scanning vitals. The air smelled like herbs and clean cloth, not fire, not fear. Jalen stood near the window watching the sunrise. But his eyes weren't calm. They were waiting. Watching. The soldier who had let them in returned with news. The hunter's body wasn't found, he said. Only melted snow, burned ground, and tracks heading north. Jalen nodded. He's still alive. He won't stop, will he? No, Jalen said. Not until he's sure they're dead. The officer crossed his arms. We could evacuate you, move the alien mother and child to a distant colony. Jalen shook his head. That won't stop Karn. He'll chase her forever. The soldier frowned. Then what do you suggest? Jalen turned, eyes hard now. We make her too protected to be hunted again. Later that day, Thea sat in the quiet garden inside the outpost. It was small, with alien flowers growing under a glass dome. She let Luma touch the petals. The baby laughed. Jalen walked in, holding something, a badge. He knelt in front of Thea. This is an official ID tag, he said. It declares you under human protection. No one can take you now, not without starting a war. Thea blinked. Why would humans do this, and for me? Jalen smiled. Because one human already did. She touched the badge slowly, then looked up. And you? What about you? Jalen hesitated, then softly said, I sent word to my people, told them I'm taking responsibility. That means if anyone tries to hurt you, they'll have to go through me. Tears filled her eyes. No one's ever fought for me like this, she whispered. Not since my mate. You don't have to run anymore, Thea. She looked at Luma, then at Jalen. You gave us food, shelter, and now a future. Jalen's voice cracked a little. You gave me something too. Purpose. She stood up slowly, walked over to him, and gently took his hand. You didn't just feed us, she whispered. You saved our souls. That night, as the stars returned to the sky, Jalen stayed up near the watchtower. He scanned the trees through binoculars, heart still alert. But nothing came. Just wind. Just peace, for now. A week later, Jalen was assigned official status as a civilian guardian to refugee-class aliens. Thea and Luma were no longer alone. People began to smile when they walked through the outpost. Soldiers offered toys. Workers shared extra bread. A child gave Luma a small drawing. And Thea? She began to laugh again. Her color returned. Her voice grew strong. One morning, as the sun rose again, Jalen sat in the garden with Luma on his lap. The child giggled and pulled at his beard. Thea stepped out of the doorway holding a warm cup of tea. She looked at the two of them and said with a smile, You look like a family. Jalen looked at her and said softly, Maybe we are. Far away. In the ruins of the tunnel, Karn stood watching a hologram of Thea, Luma, and Jalen together. His red eyes burned brighter. But for now, even monsters need time to heal. He turned away, disappearing into the smoke. The end.